It's that time of year when the kids are going back to school. They might be worried about having the right clothes, fitting in, or getting the teacher they've heard so much about. But in the mid-1960s, there were bigger things to worry about. This video is with Andell McCoy, who was in the first small group of black students in Mount Gilead who took a huge step into the unknown and integrated the elementary school. This is Andell's story. This is Andell McCoy, who grew up in this town of Mount Gilead. And the main purpose of this video is you and your siblings were pretty much the first black students to integrate the schools here. But what year did you start at, and which school was it where you started? Was it Mount Gilead Elementary?
Yes, it was Mount Gilead Elementary. I went to Highland School from 1st grade through 5th grade. And in 5th grade, they sent notices home to everyone, all the parents, letting us know that they were going to be making an effort to integrate the schools. And it was called Freedom of Choice. And they sent one piece of paper, and you had to check a box. It was either you're going to return to Highland School or you're going to go to Mount Gilead Elementary School. Highland School was considered, at that time, the black school. Mount Gilead Elementary was considered the white school.
Which was not uncommon for small towns in the South.
That's right. And
not right, but it was not uncommon.
That's true. 5th grade, at the end of 5th grade, I went to Mount Gilead Elementary School along with my brother and my sister. In my class, there was one other person. Her name was Cynthia Steele. She was my friend, and we grew up together, and so she was there. I was there in 6th grade. We were the oldest two children that went. My brother was in 4th grade. I understand he was in 4th grade by himself, and my sister was in 1st grade, and there was one other person in 1st grade with her. I only recently learned that there may have been other people in the school that I didn't know about.
Well, you wouldn't have necessarily thought about that.
No.
So let's ask you a question here then. Did your parents discuss this with you and sit down and say, give you a choice, or here's the opportunity, or they said, we're checking that box? How did that happen? You remember?
I do remember, because my mom and dad, they talked to me and my brother. I was going to 6th grade, he was going to 4th grade. I very specifically remember them saying that we think that the only way that you'll get the best education and have the most opportunity is that the schools are integrated, because we used to get, I think, leftover books from the white school. We used to get resources and materials that had already kind of been used and worn out, and then they were passed along, I shouldn't say passed down, passed along to us. And they thought that it was very important for us, in terms of our education and opportunities, for us to be equal. And they thought that this would be something that would be more leveling of the playing field. So they said, we're not going to make you go. I remember that specifically. They said, we're not going to make you go, but we think it's important. I don't ever remember having another conversation with them. I don't remember having a conversation with my brother. My sister was going to 1st grade, so she was not included in that initial talk. But what I remember is that we went, and there were a few incidents, but it wasn't extremely bad.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, you were in 6th grade, so you would remember 6th grade. What was that first day like?
My teacher was, well, the first day, I remember some of this. They used to put the names of the students on the outside of the door. And we had to go through the school and look for my name on the outside of the door. And I remember a young lady who was in my class, Pam Story, told me years later that she had to tell them that I was a girl, not a boy, because they had me under the boys' names. But my first teacher at Mount Gilead Elementary School was Miss Roberts.
I remember her.
And Miss Roberts was, I believe, the sister or sister-in-law to a woman whose store we used to go to in town off 109. There was a Roberts grocery, or I don't know what the name of it was then, but I remember we used to go to that store a lot, and she was related to Miss Roberts. I also, now I know this is, I've spoken about this before, For the most part, our time was not, there was no violence, but there was some harassment. People didn't understand why we were coming there, and they felt that we were coming to their school. And so when I asked one of the Girl Scout leaders about joining the Girl Scouts, they politely told me they thought I should join the Girl Scouts at the black school. And my thinking about that later was that they knew they had to integrate the schools. Well, they didn't have to. It was freedom of choice. The integration of schools was underway, but the integration of Girl Scouts was not yet happening as far as I knew. She just felt that she said, I believe you'll be more comfortable if you join the Girl Scouts at the black school. I wasn't Girl Scout material, by the way.
So, of course, I just can't imagine, because when I went to school, they did integrate. It was my last year at that time, 8th grade over there. Mm-hmm. Went to high school. It was a normal thing by then. Mm-hmm. But I mean, your whole year, did you have regrets at any point to saying, I wish I was back at Highland Elementary?
Actually, I never did have any regrets. And I can tell you from my own experience, I got called the N-word. I remember we used to have, Miss Roberts had this thing where we would, each holiday, we'd have little envelopes that we would place on our desks that were like mailboxes, and like on Valentine's Day or some other holidays, she'd give us cards that we could put in each other's mailboxes. We could put our names on it. And sometimes people would scratch out the faces or something, and they'd say, in, go home, or in, go back to where you came from, or you don't belong at our school, or things like that on the cards that I would get. But I also remember that most people were kind, or at least they were not unkind. Mm-hmm. There were a few people that stand out in my mind whose names I won't call, but that, I remember there was one boy in my class who would, whenever I would go to the pencil sharpener or to the trash can or something like that, he would mumble the N-word under his breath, but I never responded. And here's the part that I really am fascinated by. I never called anybody a name. I never got really angry at anybody. And I remember thinking, they don't know me. Mm-hmm. That was my defense. And I don't know how I got that. I'm very fascinated by the fact that I didn't do it and that I didn't let other people make me reactive. I can tell you that we used to do PE, and for the longest kind of time, Cynthia Steele and I were the last two people to be picked. It would be, they'd pick everybody else back and forth, and then they'd get to, you got Cynthia, I'll take Andell. And then at some point they realized that Cynthia Steele was the best athlete in the class. Uh-huh. So then it became a fight over who got Cynthia. And it was like, you had Cynthia last time. No, I want Cynthia. I was still last because I wasn't that great of a player.
Yeah, you weren't Girl Scout material.
No, I wasn't Girl Scout material, and I wasn't an athlete either. So Cynthia went on to become a star basketball player at West Montgomery.
So you persevered.
I persevered.
Never went back.
No.
Eventually they did close it. They made that the middle school basically. So all the kids, all white or black, went to Highland for grades 5 through 8 and Mount Gilead 1 through 4, something like that.
I think when I was getting ready to go to 9th grade, they closed Peabody, and that was the year that all the students from Peabody came to West Montgomery. They were a few years older than me, most of them, but that was the year they closed Peabody, and I went to West Montgomery.
So you didn't just stop at high school here. You continued your education. You graduated, undergraduate degree came from?
UNC Chapel Hill.
And you majored in, what was your final?
I majored in radio, TV with a minor in journalism.
Okay, of which you didn't care to do either of those.
No, I didn't care to do either of those.
Somehow or another you ended up in California, where you got a master's degree, and what was that? I got a master's degree in in psychology with emphasis on marriage family therapy from Phillips Graduate Institute in Encino. And you've worked in some community colleges? I've worked in public, private, and alternative schools in Los Angeles and North Carolina, and I worked in the community college in Albemarle, Stanley Community College, for more than 13 years, I believe. So last question. Yes. You've been through a lot, you've experienced a lot. Yes. The things other people could never imagine what it was like to have to be in your shoes. So Andell. Yes. You lived in a lot of different places. How did you end up coming back home to Mount Gilead? I came home in 2001 for my grandmother's funeral. And while here, the same day, I broke my hip and my femur in Standback Park in Mount Gilead.
and that later led to my relocating here. So I taught school at Stanley Community College. I taught psychology for, I think, 17 years, and I also worked as a counselor there.
Oh, and you decided to stay.
And I've been here, I've retired here.
20-something years you've been back.
I've been back, and I'm a happy person.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.